Hi everybody, I am here today to give you a quick in-service on how to use your pressure cooker so I can answer all the questions and troubleshooting issues that you've had and you've sent to me on Facebook. So first things first, let's talk about the parts on the lid and what they're called. So inside the lid, of course, you're going to see the gasket. This white rubber piece is the gasket. That has to fit underneath that metal ring all the way around there in order to make the tight seal. So take a look at it, make sure it's in place properly. There are no kinks or folds in the gasket, okay? Up top here, this is called the pressure limiting valve, and it has two settings, exhaust or airtight. Now, when it's cold, it's very loose like this. That is totally normal. It's easier to tell what position that you are in once pressure starts to build in the machine. This will become tighter, and if it's in the elevated position, then it's in exhaust. If it's in the dropped down position, then it is in airtight. Now, if you have pressure in the machine and steam is coming out of this valve here, then it's in the exhaust position. Just give it one little turn and it'll go right into the airtight position and the steam will stop coming out of here. Inside this hole is actually the valve that lets you know that pressure is inside there. It doesn't rise up very much. It stays within that hole, but you'll be able to look in there and say, oh look, pressure's in my cooker, I can't take the lid off. Those are all the pieces that are on the lid. There is a nice marking here on the lid showing you how to put it on. You simply line this padlock up with the mark on the bottom of the unit and turn it, it is locked, and then put it into the lower position, the airtight position on top of the lid. Now, just for the purposes of showing you how this works, I'm going to cook some chickpeas from dried. They're so much better when you cook them from dry than from a can. So we're going to open up our cooker. We're going to put the chickpeas into the insert in the pressure cooker. And then we're going to make sure we put at least 1.5 cups. I'm going to add 2 cups of liquid in here. Make sure those chickpeas are covered completely, or whatever else you're cooking. If you're cooking any kind of bean, make sure they're covered completely. I'm going to put some carrots and celery in just for some flavor, and then I'm going to put that lid back on, lining up the padlock with the mark on the bottom of the unit and then turning it half the way. Make sure this is in the lower or airtight position. You'll notice when you turn it, it either elevates into exhaust or drops down into airtight. Now, let's take a look at the control panel. The control panel has a lot of buttons on here, but to be perfectly honest with you, the easiest ones to work with are over here. This is the pressure time add button, and then that's the start button. So I'm going to add about 30 minutes of time here to this cooker because I'm cooking these chickpeas without having soaked them first, and I'm going to just cook them all the way through until they're done. So 30 minutes, and then you press start. That's all you have to do. Now notice the readout says this. It will say this until pressure builds inside the unit. So don't be alarmed. Know that something's going on. You just have to wait for the pressure to build, and then that readout will tell you the time that you've put in, 30 minutes, and start counting down for you. Now, just as pressure is starting to build in the cooker, you'll hear the water is boiling because you can hear the steam coming out. You'll see steam coming out from both of these valves while the water boils, creates the steam that is needed to build the pressure. Now, if this goes on for a long time, you can push firmly on the lid, but usually within about a minute, this will actually stop releasing steam just like it did just there. The pressure is now going to build inside the cooker, and within about a minute, you'll see this readout change from what it says here to 30 or whatever time you've set your pressure cooker for. If you see steam coming out of these valves for a long period of time, more than a minute, give the lid a firm push down and you'll actually notice the steam stop coming out. You'll hear the seal being created and you'll be away to the races. Now all you have to do is go away, wait for the time to count down, and then come back and we'll talk about how to release the steam. Okay, the timer just went off and you can see now the display has changed and it says end, meaning now you have a decision to make. Are you going to let the pressure drop naturally, or are you going to do a quick release? Now, here's that pressure limiting valve up here. This is how you decide what you're doing. If you're going to do a natural pressure release, you do nothing. You turn the unit off by pressing the off button, and then you just leave it alone. It will cool, the pressure will come down naturally, and eventually you'll be able to open the lid and take your food out. Now that's really good if you're doing things like pot roast or meats that tend to get tough. They will be much more tender if you let the pressure come down naturally. If you do a quick release with those meats, then they tend to shrink up a little bit and become tougher. So pot roast, natural release, just let it sit. Besides, it's way too hot to eat right now anyway, so you might as well just let it continue to cook, soften, tenderize in the pressure cooker, natural release. Now if you want to do a quick release, you're going to turn the pressure limiting valve so that instead of it sitting at the airtight position, it's going to be put into the exhaust position. Now inside, all I have in here is chickpeas and water. So I know that there's a lot of liquid. It's going to actually probably spurt out a little bit from the exhaust valve. So here's a little tip for you. I always use a tea towel or a paper towel or something just to cover this so that I don't get splatter all over my kitchen. And now I'm simply going to turn that lid. Now you see that? If you were wondering whether your pressure limiting valve was in exhaust or in the airtight mode, this will tell you pretty quickly. Right now, it's in airtight. This is exhaust. Okay, so I just cover that with a tea towel, sort of hold it over there and direct the steam so that it doesn't get my cabinets or it just doesn't go all over my kitchen. After the initial steam has come out, there's no more splattering. You can let it go. You see the steam, it's warm, but it's not going to hurt you. However, don't get your hands or face too close to that. That'd be crazy. So let that pressure, now you can see the pressure's coming down. It's getting weaker. As soon as all the pressure is out of the machine, you will be able to unlock it and take the lid off. And it's almost there right now. I just heard the valve drop. That means that the lid is now unlockable. I can turn it to unlock it and then carefully remove that lid away from you so that steam doesn't hurt you. Now, there is a little device on this cooker where you can hold the lid with the handle, just like that. And my chickpeas are done. It's that easy. So remember, the important things are you have to have liquid in your pressure cooker in order for it to work, because it needs to build steam, which then creates the pressure. So at least 1.5 cups. Sometimes you can get away with a cup, but 1.5 cups of liquid. And that doesn't really count things like barbecue sauce. It has to have some liquid in there to create the steam. If your pressure cooker says to you as soon as you've punched in the numbers, it goes for a minute and then it says beep, 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 and it goes to end, that means that you have not put enough liquid in there. If you have also walked away and steam was coming out of that pressure limiting valve before you pushed down the lid to make sure that it created the tight seal, it may have evaporated too much liquid. You might have to add more liquid to the pot in order to create that steam, to create the pressure, to create the seal of the lid. Okay? It's really simple to use. There are just a few tips to remember. Always add liquid. If the steam's coming out of the pressure limiting valve for more than a minute, give a firm push on the lid, the seal will be created, and you're going to have tender, delicious meals.